After a bit of a frosty morning in parts of the Northeast and the northern mid-Atlantic states, so we had a nice fall weather day. And we've got more nice fall weather coming up with warmer temperatures. In the meantime, the first snowstorm is going to be getting underway in the northern Rockies and northern plains and a small portion of the Pacific Northwest. We'll talk about that. Hurricane Tammy is moving northward toward Bermuda and creating a traffic jam, and we'll explain why that is important to the weather across the U.S. We'll talk about so many other things tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which, of course, is, as always, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, in southwest Suffolk County on Long Island, for mulch, topsoil, sand, and anything else you need to make your home look great. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. The website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
Tempest. Oh, I like that, Joe. That pause with the little downward, downward tone before you said the .com, and then you went way up. Very good. I like that. Yes, yeah. Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system, folks. You can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And anything you purchase, be it the weather station or any of the other wonderful gadgets and gizmos that they have, use the coupon code, I want a weather station. And if you do, what will they get, Joe?
I don't know. Oh, wait a minute. I do know now. 10%. 10% off.
That's right.
Yes.
Well, here we are. It's Tuesday. Let's remind everybody that tomorrow night, Prince Charming himself, David Toleris, will be here to talk about his opinion when it comes to the upcoming winter. And we may be joined by others. We'll see if they join us or not. And I'm trying to line up a few other people along the way. So hopefully for the next couple of weeks, I know they live in fear of coming on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, Mr. Rayo.
They always are.
I know. They're just really just very scared individuals. But we promise to treat everybody nicely. And as soon as I know, we'll let you know. Good evening to everybody on the chat board tonight. And to those of you who are not on the chat board, but perhaps you're lurking around in the background, we welcome you to subscribe to my YouTube channel and set your notifications to on, so this way you don't miss the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. Friday and Saturdays are off days for us, but if there's ever a storm on those 2 days, you can rest assured that Joe and I will be here to walk with you into the valley of the shadow of death. Oh, good God.
I'm not sure if I would make that walk, but we will be here with you for
Well, always remember, Joe, that the light at the end of the tunnel is more than likely an oncoming train.
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
Well, you had a decent day. Did you have a touch of frost this morning anywhere?
I frankly don't think so. My low this morning was 37.
Okay.
And I looked around. Usually if there's a frost, I could see it early in the morning when I was walking the dog. If there were signs of frost, it'd be on my roof or maybe patches on my grass. I didn't see anything like that. So
I'll tell you something.
Besides that, it was also cloudy. Now, I had anticipated that there might be some patchy areas of fog because I do live in a sheltered valley area or whatever, and I was expecting to see some of that. Didn't see that, but saw clouds in my sky this morning. I don't know when they moved in. It was clear up until late last night, but if that were the case this morning, that probably was one of the things that precluded the temperature from dropping much below the 40-degree mark, at least locally.
Sometimes when it gets cold, I mean, I know that when we have bitter cold air masses, sometimes you get these sort of, radiation development of clouds, and that keeps places from going below zero. I'll tell you one thing: when we get frost here, it's really a sight. I mean, it looks like a coating of snow. The frost oftentimes is so thick, everything is white. It's not just the sort of, diffuse white where you can sort of see through the patches of the frost that there's grass underneath. I mean, it's like a solid coating of. It's like somebody took a paintbrush, a white paintbrush, and just like covered everything with it. But
Now, Alan Rooper, first of all, before I get to Alan Rooper's question, it sounds, Joe, like when you have frost, that literally, if you take a picture, you could probably use it on a Christmas card. It looks
yeah,
almost like Courier and Ives type
oh
of
yeah,
scene.
oh yeah, no question, no question. It's just quite pretty, especially in the mountains. When I drive out of here, there's a lot. There's sometimes where I don't have frost, but in the higher elevations around here, you see it covering the mountains and the mountain tops and the trees and it's just gorgeous. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous when that happens. I had 2 days at freezing, but no, haven't had any frost here. But some of my friends on the other parts of town wind up they've had frost.
Now, Alan Rupa asks on the chat board, Mr. Rayo, is your lawn drying out finally so you can mow it? Now, it's not so much that I can't mow it. I do take my tractor mower out and do the mowing, but about 25% of my lawn is simply too soft because the ground is so wet. Now, we are into day one. Actually, yesterday we didn't have very much precipitation at all. We're into a string of days now, a protracted spell of dry weather, but we could also use warmer temperatures, and that's exactly what we're going to be looking at. Now, Joe, I think that tomorrow and Thursday, we're going to be looking at temps reaching 2 or above 70, but it's going to be a lot cloudier. I think that's the atmosphere is reacting to that sudden push of warmer air aloft to produce a lot of high and mid-level clouds, and we'll see that in our sky tomorrow on into Thursday. Then on Friday, the clouds are going to get blown away as we settle into a dry and sunnier weather regime, probably low to mid 70s locally here on Friday. And then on Saturday, temperatures are probably going to soar. Here, I think temperatures are going to get to the upper 70s. The record at Westchester County Airport in White Plains is 80 degrees. That was set back in 1963. And I do believe that we're going to be near that on Saturday. I think that's going to be the peak, the crescendo, the top as far as temperatures are concerned this week. Because I also foresee that on Saturday, we're probably going to have a good westerly wind blowing. So west winds, mostly sunny skies, temperatures in the upper 70s to maybe near 80. I'm figuring that I'm going to use that day as the day when I'm going to break out the tractor and the lawnmowers and mow. And also, there'll be a lot of leaves on the ground. I usually mulch those in. But whether or not I can still drive over those soft areas, even after 4 or 5 days and a couple of very warm, relatively warm days, that's going to be yet to be seen. But
Please do
Alan,
me a favor, though. You have to one day. You have to do it in a suit and a hat, like Eddie Albert.
like Eddie Albert.
Right.
Well, maybe I
Exactly.
might do that. Maybe I'll do that on Saturday and have Renata take a video or at least take a frame of me so I can do my Eddie Albert imitation of riding around with the tractor. Maybe I don't know if in a suit or whatever, but something a little bit more. I have a T-shirt, by the way, that says the Lawn Ranger. But you never saw Eddie Albert wear something like that when he's riding around on Mr. Haney's broken down tractor.
Well, we have a few Mr. Haneys and a few Mr. Kimballs around here, so maybe one of these days I will run into them.
Right now, we have in our house we have an interesting situation where we just had on the side of our house a the trench from our remediation in July. We had that filled in and we had everything set with new asphalt or whatever. Now during the summer, we noticed that there were yellow jackets that were going into a small hole in the side of our house. On the side, there was a siding. There was a little hole, and we kept spraying and spraying and spraying. They just kept coming back. But the guys who did the asphalt in the midst of doing that, they kind of fill that hole in. And now for the last couple of weeks, not all the time, but every once in a while, I see a yellow jacket or two flying around down here in the basement. And I'm wondering whether or not they no longer have a place to go out, that they're stuck inside of wherever there is on the side of my house. And maybe they found a hole somewhere and they're coming in through that. So
Well,
um, I'm not sure exactly how to handle this. I did look into the lifespan of a yellow jacket. Didn't know this, Joe. They only last about 15 or 20 days. The drones, the worker bees, only have a lifespan of about a few weeks. The one yellow jacket that lives into the wintertime is the queen yellow jacket. And so she buries herself somewhere in the ground or whatever and tries to stay warm during the cold weather while all the rest of the bees or yellow jackets die off in the cold weather. But then in the spring, she comes out and she, tries to start a new family. So who knows? Maybe the queen will be living inside the wall of my house this winter. And when she finally emerges, she'll emerge into my home office here. And if she does, I'll be ready to swat her down, and that'll be it as far as the
there you
queen.
go, you murderer.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, Dove Frieder, I think it was. Yes, Dove Frieder has asked that we show a surface map of North Dakota. So, here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, we always try
Pre-blizzard or pre-snowstorm, right?
pre-snowstorm, I guess. And this is the 21Z surface map. And I've centered it on North Dakota. And actually, the colder air is just beginning to funnel down. I'm looking to see temperatures are mostly in the upper 30s to middle 40s. But you go up to the north on the Canada side, and you don't have to go that far, and temperatures are down around 20, and go a little further north, and they're in the teens. So there's a cold high that is beginning to build and strengthen, and actually more of the push has pushed down into Montana, where we've got a few of the stations actually reporting some snow all the way down into the central part of the state. It's a little warmer in the southern part, where it's in the low 40s, but that's going to change as well as this complex frontal system with lows, and then there's a stronger low, you see it here, sitting just near Vancouver Island, that's about to move inland into the west, and that is going to be the energy that's going to create we'll call it the first widespread major snowfall for October. It's a major snowfall. In January or February, you might not put it in that particular category, but for this time of year, even there, it's a pretty, it's a rather important storm.
And what is the Weather Channel calling this? Have they already started dating?
I don't know. I don't care. I don't. They could name drizzle droplets for all I care. I better not say that too loud. That might give them ideas. Meanwhile, Joe, in the east, there's a nice high centered in central North Carolina. I was 38 this morning, got to 72. It was a wall-to-wall sunny type of day here in North Georgia, an absolute beauty of a day.
Beat you by 1 degree this morning.
And by the way, I meant to mention that the fall colors here are insane this year. They are just gorgeous. We are going into peak mode as we speak. I mean, it really is gorgeous outside with all the fall colors.
Well, I'm happy for you. Here in the immediate area, that there's not much to write home about. Although Renata claims that he said, "Why don't you get in the car and travel around? There's some beautiful color down the road." All right, I'll.
She claims.
I believe. Well.
That's a doubt word though. That's a doubt type of word.
Go shopping tomorrow. I'll tell you, just take out your phone or whatever and take some pictures, and I'll enjoy them when you come back looking at your phone. If I want to see plants and tree, if I want to see them change color, I just don't water them for 2 weeks.
Right, exactly.
They'll change color.
70s have actually pushed all the way up into Wisconsin and Michigan, and that's has been setting off severe weather in some of those areas there, pretty much all afternoon. and it's 70s in you go further south in the middle Mississippi Valley, then you start to get into the 80s. It was mostly low and mid 80s across the Gulf states and back into East Texas, and 70s as you go further west. So, this is a few people. A few people have said to me, I've seen posts like, "Where's fall? Where's fall? Where's fall?" I mean, this is what autumn is like. I mean, we still have residual, let's call it summer air. We have still some residual warm air around that the atmosphere hasn't taken care of yet, so it gets spent out this way, where you get cold air masses that are coming down, but they're not. It's October the 20. It's October 24th. They're not particularly cold. Uh, a few weeks from now they will be, actually maybe even sooner than that. But my point is that seeing weather like this is nothing unusual for this time of year. It happens.
It does. It does. You can say, well, it's an annual event.
It is. It is an annual event. It's not something new. And the other thing that's not new is the fact that we're seeing the first snowstorm up in the northern plains and the northern Rockies, and extending all the way into Washington State, and that's where you would normally see the first snow in the United States. You probably are hard pressed to find a year where it wound up being in the Northeast or in the Great Lakes. I mean, it usually starts out there, and then gradually, as we go through the next month and a half, you're going to start to see it in more and more places. And we do have a lot of winter storm warnings up across just about the whole state of Montana is under a winter storm warning, and parts of northwestern Wyoming, a few counties in Idaho also under winter storm warnings. Winter weather advisories are surrounding that. We've got a few counties in northwestern Washington where we've got winter storm warnings. Winter storm watches are up for areas in northeastern North Dakota, north central North Dakota, southwestern North Dakota. Warnings up in the northwestern counties there. And we've also have some flood watches up in a few counties in north central Texas, nosing into south central Colorado. Otherwise, the rest of the country is really just sitting nice and quiet. And, that's not a bad thing. On the satellite loop tonight, now one of the reasons, and this is something that when we look at models over time, if they're not handling the tropics correctly, they can screw up the pattern. They can't. They can screw up what the models are showing is going to be the pattern, and then suddenly you put a tropical storm in there and it alters it to some degree. And we spoke about this last night. You could see it on the lower right. That is Hurricane Tammy that's moving northward, but it never got picked up by that trough over the weekend, which was a pretty deep trough that extended fairly far south, and somehow it wound up missing that trough. So now that it's sitting here, it doesn't have any. The exits are closed for it. It really can't go out to the east. It's only going to be able to get so far north, and what it's doing is feeding this ridge that's building in the eastern part of the United States. And until Tammy gets out of the way, this ridge is just going to hold and not break down. Now, eventually it will break down. It's going to break down, start breaking down late in the week and this weekend, and that's going to allow the weather systems to start moving again and start bringing cold fronts through. And you can see around the periphery of that ridge moisture that is coming up out of Mexico and streaming northward through Texas and into the middle and upper Mississippi Valley. Of course, you've got the warm air coming around the ridge, of course. And then in the west, where we do have a trough. And in fact, Joe, the Pacific Northwest, that energy that's coming in, I mean, it's even though on the surface it's not an especially deep low, we're seeing a pretty wrapped up system that is coming in. And that is the energy that's going to be causing this storm system to rev up for the northern Rockies and the northern plains. So that'll probably be the game changer once that ridge breaks down. That system is probably going to start the process of changing weather here late in the weekend and next week.
And as I said at the onset of the show, Joe, I think the push of milder or warmer air initially is going to arrive in the upper layers of the atmosphere. And I think that I think we're going to start out tomorrow here in the tri state area with some sunshine. But I think you'll note as the day wears on, high and mid level clouds will be increasing. And toward the end of the day, those clouds may actually thicken up quite a bit. And it may be rather cloudy tomorrow night and rather cloudy on Thursday. And yet, the milder air that's moving in will again have temperatures climbing probably to or even above 70. Then we'll wait for the atmosphere to kind of stabilize on Friday with the cloud cover finally giving way to sunshine. I think second half of Friday is going to be a bright and sunny and mild, if not downright warm day with temps in the mid 70s. And again, the peak coming before the next cold front on Saturday with westerly winds. There's going to be a good, I think there's going to be a good deal of downsloping locally here on Saturday. And that's why I think temperatures on Saturday will be the warmest out of the bunch with upper 70s locally and maybe even spots like Newark and other places, urban areas going to or even above 80. If there's going to be one warm day, one possible record breaking day, I think Saturday is going to be the day. And then things are going to be falling quite a bit from there for Sunday and especially for the early part of next week.
You're seeing a lot of high clouds blowing off those thunderstorms up in Wisconsin and in Michigan. So you're thinking that those high clouds are going to curl southeastward and come in overnight and tomorrow.
Yes, I think that'll be the case.
Yeah, there's some other the high clouds that are streaming northward through Oklahoma and actually have pushed into Illinois and Indiana. Yeah, those look like they're turning eastward. So we'll see how that plays out as we go through Wednesday. Meantime, actually the radars, except for the east, which is just about shut down radar wise from Maine to Florida and across most of the Gulf states, you do have some busy activity going on, and the area that's up in and around the Great Lakes, there's actually a pretty impressive line of thunderstorms that is running from northeastern Wisconsin southwestward into southwestern Minnesota. Now, earlier today there were a bunch of severe thunderstorm warnings that I saw about 1 o'clock this afternoon, running through this area because it's been doing this all day long. Don't see any severe thunderstorm warnings now, but there are still some strong thunderstorms, and there's probably some heavy rains that are going on in that. These storms are moving more northeastward. They're not really making a lot of eastward progress. So some spots there might be raining for hours and hours with those storms the way they are. There's also some heavier rain down in Missouri, in southeastern Kansas, actually in eastern Kansas, I should say, and around Kansas City, eastern Oklahoma, back down toward north central Texas into the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And meanwhile, starting to see that heavier moisture coming into Washington State, and some of that's already pushed into the eastern part of Washington State, and nosing. The first echoes are nosing through Idaho and Montana. They flared up a bit in eastern Montana. You see those darker greens showing up. Now, some of this is from the obs I saw at 5 o'clock this afternoon. Some places are seeing some snow there, but the main push is just coming into the coast now. So we're going to see the snows rev up later tomorrow, but particularly Thursday and Thursday night, eventually spreading into North Dakota. I just want to quickly look at the Storm Prediction Center and see what they're doing here, because yesterday they did show risk. And boy, everybody must be getting it. Okay, finally. Marginal risk for severe weather in that zone from southeastern Minnesota in through the state of Wisconsin. They even just put a mesoscale discussion out for, but it says with severe thunderstorm watch unlikely. I just want to see what area that they've got circled that they think it's unlikely. And this is for, this looks like West Texas. Let's see what their discussion says. Yeah, this is for southeastern New Mexico and southwestern Texas. That they think that a watch is unlikely. to go up. Okay, so they don't really have anything else as far as that is concerned. And then for tomorrow, they have oh, wrong click. Uh, there we go. Come on, hold still. Map keeps jumping around. Tomorrow we have a small area of marginal risk in southeast Nebraska, southwest Iowa, and much of central Texas, and a small portion of southern Oklahoma in a marginal risk. No severe weather is forecast for the subsequent periods for Thursday into Friday or Friday into Saturday. So that takes care of that. And WPC with the rainfall forecast over the next 7 days. So they've got from a hundredth to a tenth of an inch, and then you can see the amounts kind of go higher as you go northwest from the coast in Pennsylvania and upstate New York. Western New York and northern New York, 3/4 of an inch to an inch or so. Heavy rains from central Texas into Oklahoma, northwestern Arkansas, southern Missouri into southern Illinois of up to several inches in the next week. You've got that heavy rain band across Wisconsin of 2.5 inches or more up into northern Michigan. The 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a half area that you see in the northern Rockies and the northern plains, well, that's mostly, if not all, snow. And then you've got it also 3/4 of an inch to a few stripes of an inch and a half in Oregon, in western Oregon and western Washington. And as far as the snow is concerned, Mr. Rayo, this is WPC's forecast for the probability for at least 4 inches. And they've got a pretty large area of 95 to 100% probability in Montana and into North Dakota, at least the northern. If you cut North Dakota northeast southwest, it's the northern part of that that is under that 4-inch plus zone. I always like to use with a 50% line. I think the 50% line is a pretty good indicator of where the southern and northern edges of 4 inches are. So that would be not the darkest blue, but the next shade of blue, and that runs up into northwestern South Dakota, northern Wyoming. Then you've got, kind of sort of snakes its way down across Wyoming into Idaho, and then you got another area that is in Washington State and Oregon. And the probability of 12 inches is, in that darker blue is 40%. And you see it there in this north-south line from central Montana down into northwestern Wyoming, and also in eastern Montana going on up into northwestern North Dakota. There's a 40 to 50% or higher chance of a foot or more. So I guess for October 24th, this isn't too shabby a snow event.
No, it isn't. Oh, I mean, back in 2011, I had in the last week of October, I had a not too shabby snow event with 14 inches, but that's like a once in a God knows when or how long period. But yeah, for out west, out in the plains of the Rockies, it's just not bad for the latter part of October.
Izzy D is the first to hit the tip jar tonight, and he wants to know when can I come up there for another meet and greet. I can tell you, Izzy, not anytime soon.
Yeah.
It's not happening anytime soon. I don't know what the definition of soon is, but I can tell you this: I've got no plans to come up into the New York, New Jersey area, Long Island area for a long time. I just don't want to. Why would I want to? I mean, it's just down here I got no traffic. I have got a fairly easy, stressless life, and I kind of want to keep it that way. I appreciate you asking, though. I just want to let you know that I do appreciate you asking. But if I do come up, I will let you know if I'm in a position to be able to do that. I hope that's fair. Do you think that's fair? Does that sound fair, Joe?
It does. It does. We're waiting for you to come up because I'd love to do a meet and greet. I'm sure if we had one, let's say at a local restaurant or whatever, we probably could fill most of the restaurant with people who,
Well, you know what? One of these days in the future, who knows? Maybe I'll be able to pull it off. Meanwhile, Joe, the NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation, which we have been watching rather closely on the latest runs. I will take a look at Hurricane Otis, Johnny Quest, I promise, and thank you for hitting the tip jar. I will do that, so just be patient. We'll get there. Um, Hurricane Otis is going to be a major hurricane making landfall along the south coast of Mexico, but we'll check it out in a minute. Joe, this NAO on today's run from the ensembles from last night, you can see how going back to before July 1st, it's been negative, except for that small period in early September. And then it went negative again, and it's struggling to get back to the neutral line. Yesterday, it showed it actually going slightly positive, and now it's gone back to now it's got it slightly negative. There seems to have noticed this bias over time that um, it starts off trying to push it up toward the neutral line and then it backs away from it. And I think that's what you're seeing here. The model's sort of respecting the fact that the atmosphere is up in the North Atlantic and over the Arctic regions continue to show higher than normal pressures. And this is going to be important. And I've said I'm intrigued by the fact that we've been like this for 4 months. So I wonder whether this is, one of the things in weather that works a lot of the time is persistence. The trend is your friend. And last year we saw the NAO not really go negative very much, and it always wanted to be positive. This seems to be the other way around. So that'll be interesting enough when we start to get to the meat of the winter. The problem is that all the other teleconnections have to kind of go along with all this. I mean, a negative NAO doesn't do you any good if you don't have some sort of teleconnection into Canada, a ridge in the western part of the United States to help drive the cold air to the east. But this is at least something for snow lovers and winter weather lovers to try to hang their hat on.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Indeed. All right. There's not a whole lot going on the surface map yet, so why don't we let's do the tropics and take a look at what's happening with Tropical Storm Tammy, which is still a minimal hurricane. I might say Tropical Storm, Hurricane Tammy. It's a minimal hurricane, 75-mile-an-hour top winds, moving northeast at 8, 24/6, 61/7. They don't have any watches at all for Bermuda. And in fact, the Hurricane Center is still forecasting this to go post-tropical by Thursday afternoon. And they also have it hooking back to the west, which is respecting with what some of the models are showing. Again, the east you're not going to get the ridge to get out of the way until this thing gets out of the way or gets weak enough to allow everything to start moving along. So we have to watch this from that standpoint. I just don't know what's going to be left of it when it makes that hook westward. I know I've seen some of the models want to take it, some models have taken it further west toward the southeast coast and then it just sort of disappears. So I don't know, Joe. This to me, I'm not really too interested in this at the moment, other than from the standpoint of how it's impacting the weather pattern overall across the United States.
Somebody on the chat board, and I will not mention the name, said that a rather noteworthy forecaster is actually claiming that this is going to go all the way to the eastern seaboard, which,
You know what, Joe? People can say whatever they want. I mean, maybe it will. I don't know. I just don't. I'm just not too concerned about that sort of thing. I'm more concerned with how it's impacting the upper air. I just don't know. We get the time. Given the time of year, it's harder for these systems. Excuse me. Except in rare instances where you really have a perfect setup, it's hard for these systems to hold together. Up off the Atlantic coastline, particularly if they're moving slowly. There's no deep trough. There's nothing that's really driving it. Sandy was a whole different animal. I mean, that you saw what was going to happen with that. But this one, I'm just not. I'm at this point, I'm not overly concerned with it.
All right. Well, we'll we'll play it by ear. We'll see what happens. But like you, I'm not going to sweat it, so to
Yes.
speak.
Tom Contino pointing out that I was the only TV meteorologist who recognized the microclimate. Thank you, Tom. Being living on Long Island, I learned that pretty quick. I really did. And the chairman, Scott Briller, hitting super chat tonight. Thank you, Scott Briller. The biggest October snowfall ever in Montana is 48 inches, Joe, 4 feet in Cold Creek, Montana. I wonder if that was in downtown Cold Creek or was it in
Well, you know,
was it in Cold Creek Heights, perhaps? I don't know.
I was in Montana in 1979, and there were some rather small. I was in Roy, Montana, population 150. So you got these little towns, strewn around one of the bigger states in terms of real estate. So uh, I tell you that the storm that we're looking at for this week, the snowfall, covers a good part of Montana. And like I said, Montana is a pretty big state. They don't call it Big Sky Country for nothing.
Well, I will tell you this, just as you mentioned about the population of the town you went to in Montana.
Right.
I was in Sorta Gorda, California, okay, which is along the coast. When you're driving up the coast, you go through a town called I mean, I don't know what it was now. We're talking back in what was it, 1977 I went? 1977. We drove through Sorta Gorda, California, Joe. Do you know what the population of Sorta Gorda, California was?
3.
Close. You're close. 7. And they actually had a sign that said that. Welcome to Sorta Gorda, California, population 7. And you passed by a house, you passed another building, and then maybe there was a third building. I don't quite remember. And then after the third building, there was a sign that said, "You are now leaving Sorta Gorda. We hope you enjoyed yourself." So I don't know what kind of house it was that if you stopped you would enjoy yourself, but that's what the sign said. Anyway, there we have Hurricane Otis, Joe. Hurricane Otis.
Right.
Um, and it's
West, I think, was asking.
yes, 15.7 north, 99.6 west in the eastern Pacific. Maximum sustained winds are now 145 miles per hour and moving north-northwest at 8. I'm surprised. Why don't they have the warnings on? Usually this map has the warnings. Did I hit the wrong one? Warnings, cone, static images. They don't have the warnings on that map. I mean, maybe they haven't updated it completely because this was as of 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time. So they just updated it. So maybe they're not finished updating with this. But 145, I think it's worth taking a look on the satellite. Shall we?
Surely.
Yes, of course. So let's take a look and see. Okay. The Nestis East Pacific satellite products. This page has moved. Okay. See what it's now. It's to the OSPO. All right. Come on. What is this? No satellite. Okay, I don't want this. Just a second. I'm gonna go the other way. There's too much. That requires too much work. I'll just bring the goes up and we'll do it from there. Oh, come on. For God's sake, folks. Weather Service sites are not doing what they're supposed to do. Here's Otis. Okay. So there it is. There's the visible, and you can see there's a pinwheel. The floater image is making me dizzy. Eric, no, it's jumping around. I'm going to see if I could get a better shot here. Let's go to the eastern East Pacific. That's probably better. It's a wider shot, but you get the idea. I mean, it's not a very big hurricane from the standpoint of the amount of geography, but it does, it looks like it's starting to get that buzzsaw look just before it makes landfall there along the south coast of Mexico. So it's very impressive. And the ITCZ across the Pacific, the intertropical convergence zone is very active. There's a lot of clouds from from Panama and the South America coastline going straight west out into the Pacific Ocean. So pretty busy from that standpoint. So probably maybe there'll be another system or so too that'll come out of that from that area in the coming days. And of course, up to the north, Baja, you can see those clouds are going pretty much north to south and then turning east to west. So that's the colder flow from the north that is pushing southward. So I mean, again, pretty impressive here on the satellite with the activity on the Pacific side. So let's go to what the GFS is doing, and of course, you can on the first frame you see the edge of Tammy, the high off the North Carolina coast. Tammy on the GFS, which seems to want to hold it together a bit more, is on this run gets to Bermuda, then it gets shunted to the east. But one of the things I noticed with the GFS is showing a more active tropical environment in the on the Atlantic side because there's some sort of inverted trough in the Bahamas by the time we get to early next week. And of course, by then, here's the storm in the plains, and you see the snow there, and the low that comes out that goes from Kansas on up to Lake Huron, and then into Canada, passing south of James Bay, going way to the north. Some showers on Friday that move across northern Maine, and then over the weekend, as you said, Saturday looks good. Sunday, that front gets closer. You got to wonder whether there might be some showers here sometime later Sunday afternoon, maybe, or certainly in Pennsylvania there will be, and then spreading eastward. So, are we going to have a dry Saturday and Sunday? I don't know. I mean, Saturday, yes, and maybe the first half of Sunday, but I'm not so sure about the latter part of the day Sunday. That front eventually does kick through. And there's a fairly decent shot of cold air that comes in for early next week. Not so much on Monday, just sort of starts to come in on Monday, but it really comes in for Monday night, Tuesday into Wednesday as this big high that starts out in Western Canada comes through the Dakotas and then gradually moves into the east. So it does look like we're going to have at least a couple of days next week where temperatures are going to be on the cold side. And maybe this will produce more widespread frosts and freezes in the Northeast and down into the Mid-Atlantic states than we've seen so far.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be decidedly chillier or colder beginning about Tuesday of next week and beyond. Don't forget, Tuesday's also Halloween. So we're going to have a lot of kids who are probably, if they're going to be going out after sunset, mom and dad will probably be either with them or bundling them up. And Linus, if you're watching, it's going to be a cold night in the pumpkin patch if you're going to be waiting for the great pumpkin this year, as it usually tends to be.
Oh, and by the way, the GFS continues on various runs to produce, as I said earlier, showing a much more active tropics, and it showed that on today's run because it's got a Category 4 hurricane coming out of the Caribbean in the latter part of the forecast period. It's down to a 934 as it approaches western Cuba, and who knows if that's real, but that's impacting what the models are doing for the fact that the GFS keeps showing very active tropics going into the month of November. You look at the European, at least out through 10 days, and well, let me go. Let's use the North Atlantic view anyway. Now, and well, it does have a gyre down there over Central America, with a lot of rain. So and lower than normal pressures by day 10. So maybe it's possible that we could get something to come out of the Northwest Caribbean in about at 10 days from now and beyond.
And I'm sure that
correct.
People on the chat board, I haven't had a chance to look in the last minute or two, but I'm sure people out there probably are saying the same thing. Don't forget that Sandy was in the last few days of October, so it's not impossible that we could have a biggie, So, yeah, it's not impossible, but generally speaking, once we get past about the 10th of October, the uh, activity or the potential for tropical cyclone activity in our neck of the woods usually goes down rather precipitously. And with each passing day, the chances of something really having significant effect on us uh, really, they're few and far between. So, not saying it's impossible, but the odds are going down now, right, Joe?
Right. Yeah, oh, absolutely. And troughs continue after we get rid of this ridge. After we get rid of this ridge, troughs continue to drop into the eastern part of the United States. I mean, there's some ridging in between as one trough pulls out and another one drops back in. They're not dropping into the west or down the west coast. Even when these troughs in the east pull out, you don't see the new trough establishing itself in the west. They seem to be just one goes out and then another one comes in behind it, and you still see if you look at what's going on in the North Atlantic and over Greenland and over the Arctic, you still see higher than normal pressures up there. I mean that's a negative NAO signature that we're looking at here, and this is 2 weeks from now if it's right. I don't know that it's going to be, but literally. But if it has the general idea of where the troughs and ridges are going to be, this is not a warm look.
Keith James, please, please, Keith James II. He's. I know you're going to love this.
I
Is
know
the
the
sun
the
angle?
the 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 sun angle files are that's a second sun angle uh,
Well,
comment that was put up tonight.
I will tell you, Keith James, too, is that the sun angle was not an issue in October, late October of 2011 for me when I got my 14 inches of snow. So that
No, it
was
wasn't.
not an issue at all.
And don't forget, I mean, well, all right, so the sun angle now is what? It's like it is in late February.
Well, hold on, 10. Where are we? We're 20. This is the 24th, 34 or 20. Yeah, maybe even more like mid February.
Mid-February. So I'm going to say no. I would say no. You don't have a whole lot of daylight this time of year either, so
Yeah.
yeah, no. And right, David Schwartz, absolutely. Sun angle is not important at if the storm is at night, but the street light angle is. Okay, you got to watch out for the street light angle.
And Tom Contino, he's saying, Keith James, I don't usually start getting very excited about snow until November. Very rare to get October snows on Long Island. Very rare. I think you have a better chance of seeing a dodo bird on Long Island in October as opposed to seeing October snows of any
Yeah,
significance.
early November, yes. I mean, I can remember a couple of times. I mean, there have been a couple of times where we've had snow showers in October. I certainly remember those events. It's happened a few times, but as far as accumulating snow, while I lived there for 30 years, I don't remember seeing accumulating snows in October.
And
Definitely in November, though, and particularly even in early November.
And that comment, by the way, kind of reminds me of that statement that Lucy makes in the Charlie Brown Christmas, the annual Charlie Brown Christmas show, where catch snowflakes on your tongue. It's fun. I never have snowflakes in December. I always wait until January. And
Right.
Linus says they sure look ripe to me.
A number, by the way, just to yeah, right. The I know a few of you have been putting up, occasionally put up in a comment that, the Weather Channel says in their long range, that the winter's going to be hot and humid with thunderstorms. I mean, I look, I understand you guys like to share information, and I'm okay with that, but my response to it is like, who cares? Who cares what they're saying? That's not relevant. They could say whatever they want. Who cares? What's important is that you watch how the weather evolves. Otherwise, why sit here? Why even watch this show? Why even pay any attention if you're gonna quote gospel from other sources that say one thing or another? You kind of sort of you make the daily watching of all of this just sort of kind of pointless. I don't know. Maybe I'm overreacting. I'm not. Maybe I'm not expressing my thoughts here correctly on it, but that's just sort of how I feel.
It's hard to believe it's going to be 5 years on November 15th, 5 years since we had that. I refer to it as the Governor Murphy snowstorm. You remember when Governor Murphy put out an emergency statement or whatever and blamed the forecasters, even though the day before, Joe, we had already told everybody that there was going to be a chance for significant snowfall, and nobody, or at least none of the roads were treated. That was the main concern or the main problem. I mean, nobody could get home. People were on the road for 5 hours
What
trying to get home.
you talking about? I'm sorry, you talking about the one after Sandy?
No, November
Oh,
15th.
the November 15th one. Well, of course. Well, that was the one where they put up winter weather advisories the night before, and somehow nobody knew this was coming. That was a that was a budget issue. That was one that storm and the roads, the untreated roads was 100% a budget issue because towns do not budget for accumulating snows for the month of November. They just
Absolutely.
don't. Okay.
Absolutely. And of course, with no treatment of the roads, the snow accumulated. And there were some places that had, all right, the original forecast was for like 2 to 3 inches. Some places got as much as 5 or 6. So, yeah, the amount was off. I will admit that. But what I will not admit to is the fact that we didn't give everybody prior warning. And if you don't treat the roads initially, if you don't do anything to the roads, that snow is going to stick on contact and cause all kinds of problems. And that's what happened. It stuck 1, 2 inches of snow on many of the major roadways, and took people like 2, 3, 4 hours to get home. And everybody started, moaning and complaining and everything. Why did we talk? Why weren't they? But you're absolutely right. November does not fit into the budgetary concerns of most municipalities. They have that salt and the sand and
The
everything
brine
is the brine.
and the
Oh,
result of
wait a
that
minute,
and the result
December
of
and beyond.
right and the result of that was that they were putting brine down for weather systems where the temperatures were going to be in the mid 40s.
Right.
I mean, I remember driving. I remember driving home one night in a situation where it was going to be in the low. It was temperatures were in the low to mid 40s. It wasn't, there was no real threat of any kind of icing. It wasn't like as if cold air was coming in a rush or anything like that. And they were brining roads at 45 degrees. I mean, come on, talk about silliness. It's oh. Anyway. I don't do that anymore. So. I live here. I live here where they actually do brine roads here, which is surprising, but they do. And we do have sand trucks that go out. Well, now I'm in the mountains, so it does snow here. So, but even downstate closer to Atlanta, they do have a small um, snow removal operation that they have, and they do brine. I know a couple of snow events that they've had down in the general area around Atlanta, if not necessarily in Atlanta itself, but there were a few snowfalls of size in the last couple of years. They were somewhat localized, but some of the towns were able to treat roadways with brine. Yes, liquid rust, Pat PFD. That's a good way to put it. Liquid rust. Do you have Ruler Jeopardy tonight?
Yes, I do.
Good.
I do have Briller
Well,
Jeopardy.
let's play. We have 72 likes so far. Thank you for those of you who hit the like button on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And if you like the show, as Joe and I always like to go over 100 likes, although we don't always do that. But if you like the show, hit the like button. Now is your opportunity to like us.
I'm sure we'll hit the like. A lot of people hit the like button tomorrow night with the.
I wonder if with one of our guests, I wonder if they're. I better not say it. Go on. There's a like
I'm not
button.
going to
There's
say
an
it.
unlike button.
I'm not going to say it. I'm not
Yes.
going to say it. Tonight on Briller
If
Jeopardy.
this were Bob Grant show, there would be a despise button. I despise you.
we average low temperature in October in the following 5 cities. Average
Oh,
low temperature in October, Joe. We will start with a city that's not too far from where you are, Atlanta, Georgia. Average low in October.
You know,
And I will say
I'm
this,
not. The thing is, I'm not paying attention to these things very much anymore. So it's like I'm losing. You know, this was something that in my mind I could have easily pulled out of the hat. Um, I will.
this is one of your favorite, one of your favorite, when this temperature came up, you'd always use this, and then somebody complained.
Oh, double nickels.
Double nickels.
I was
That's
gonna
right.
actually thinking double nickels. If
And
you
and it,
hadn't given me the hint, I was gonna say 55.
and 55 is right on the nose.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes. Tyler
Yeah.
Fienga and Keith James II, Joe, both also said 55, and Izzy D said 56. So he was close. And Steve Lapointe said
Good.
57, and he was close. And Carol
Yeah.
DeCara said 54. So a number of you got very close. That's good.
Well, how about this city, Boston?
Boston.
See, Tom
Oh,
Contino always wants to get in on the inside. I mean, the knowledge of who complained about.
I know. Well, if you can't
I know
gossip, why live?
you and I know it, and that's all I had to say. And there's no need to spread it out now on social media as to who the gas bag was who cleaned the about, anyway. Boston
I'll say 44.
44, a little on the low side.
All right. Well, Carol DeCara said 51, and Luis Orazio said 48.
Well, if
Frank's
that's what Lewis says, then Lewis is most definitely right. It's for
yes. I thought so is Patrick Darcy at 48. Yes.
yes.
Again, a lot of you getting very close.
How about Chicago?
Chicago. So we said what 48 for Boston. So
Yes.
I'll say yeah, it gets colder faster there. So I'll say 42.
Well, it is colder than Boston, but not that cold.
Yeah, I guess it was a little. Just thinking about the wind off the lake. Um,
See, now I'm confused here.
Gatsby's weather show says 43. Izzy D says 44. Alan Rupa 46. Not yet.
Not yet, but close.
So I'm thinking 45, which is what
No,
Luis Aricio said.
go in the other direction.
Michael McGuire said
Wire,
47.
47.
That's a little
There you
high.
go.
Wow.
But the question is that valid for the south side of Chicago or for
The South
another?
Side? Is that what you just said? The South Side, yes.
That's what.
I mean, is it O'Hare? Is it Midway? Is it
Yeah,
one of the other airports that's there?
I don't know.
Oh,
But anyway,
I always wanted to go to Chicago to ride the L.
how about the Mile High City?
Denver. Oh, Denver's, if it's not one of the craziest weather places in the world from the standpoint of temperature swings, I'll say 40.
Yeah, a little lower.
Um,
Gatsby Weather Show says 1.
right. Rich Rothmansky says 39. Maggie P says 36.
Maggie P is correct. It's 36.
Okay. Well, 40
36.
wasn't a terrible guess.
No, it wasn't. I mean, the little, ski guy is still up there on the slope.
88 likes is not enough.
No, of course not.
No.
We only accept
It's not enough. We want 100.
I haven't rung my little bell in a long time.
Oh, it hasn't been that long.
So let's ring the bell tonight. How about this last one, Joe? Fred and Ethel's favorite place they've always wanted to visit.
Fred and Ethel's favorite place that they always wanted to visit?
Yes.
They both wanted to go there.
They both wanted to go there. They were hoping that Lucy would win the
Oh,
trip
in Hawaii. Honolulu.
Honolulu.
God.
Average low temperature in October in Honolulu.
69?
No.
Too low.
Yes. Look at this. Look at this. Rich Rothmansky gets it. 74 degrees. Alan Rupa, sorry you missed by 1. And Pat Pat BFD, you were one over. We were playing Prices Right rules. You wouldn't have. You wouldn't
Right.
have
You
won.
would not have won. You would have gone over. You would have gotten you would have had a nickel on the big wheel, and then you spun it the second time, and then you would have gotten $1, which would have given you a dollar
In,
five.
incidentally, CBS came out yesterday with their Christmas programming schedule.
Yeah.
They're going to have Frosty the Snowman. No, Rudolph. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. It's going to be played on Black Friday, Joe, November 24th. The one and only appearance of Rudolph will be on a date 1 month from
That's
Christmas Eve.
pretty early.
Yeah, it is. It's ridiculously early. And here's the other crazy thing, which I noticed: Christmas week on the nighttime schedule. Every night, Monday through Friday, during Christmas week, they're going to have special Christmas shows of The Price is Right at night. Now, don't ask me what the heck they're going to be
They
doing.
are so starved for programming. Is the SAG after strike ever going to end?
I don't know, but that's their version of having Christmas programming. The Price is Right at night, 5 straight nights during Christmas week.
Oh, God.
No, they don't want to show. They don't want to show programming like probably the best version of Christmas Carol with George C. Scott. That would be nice to show, wouldn't it? But no, they're not going to.
I've
We're going to
seen
have to look
that.
at
I
Drew.
mean,
Look
I'm
at,
sure that'll be on sometime in that stretch.
I saw that last
Yeah, but
week.
putting prices right on for it's 1 hour. They've got 3 hours of programming at night. But
Right.
who, I don't mean I'm not insulting you here, but other than you, who watches linear TV anymore?
Well, yes, you're right.
I mean, really. If I want to watch Rudolph, I can go on Amazon Prime and pull it up anytime. If I want to watch the George C. Scott version of Christmas Carol, I can do the same. I mean, I'm not forced to watch it at any fixed moment, but I understand the attraction to it for us older folks because that's how we did it as kids.
Right. Well, you and I grew up in an era where when they showed The Wizard of Oz once a year on CBS, not only did they show it, but they had somebody who was hosting the show, like Dick Van Dyke. You know, and you'd build your entire week around The Wizard of Oz. Oh my goodness, The Wizard of Oz is coming on Sunday night. Oh, I gotta, nobody does that anymore.
Yeah,
Nobody.
I cut the cable cord. Now, when I moved here, I didn't get cable. I went to streaming. I moved here in January of 21, and the only thing I had from cable was the internet service, which I don't even have that anymore because I get it through the electric company here, the broadband. So yeah, I haven't had cable for the better part of 2.5, almost 3 years now.
Right. I of course worked for Cablevision, and there was a one time if you worked for Cablevision for 25 years, you'd have cable for life.
Right.
So I was there for 21 years,
Okay.
and
But
so I retired, and I think I got something like 10 years. And P.S. It's not free. It's very much reduced from what most people get, but it's not free. And the original thing that they used to dangle in front of you, the carrot, was if you could stay with the company for a quarter of a century, free cable for the rest of your life. That's since
see,
they changed hands and they now are owned by a European consortium. Forget about that. That ain't happening.
they
So
don't. So they took away that benefit.
I don't know. I don't know if somebody, for example, who did work 25 years and did get that,
Well,
you
what
know,
about the employees that are there now? Do they get it for free?
I don't know. No, I don't want, ever
Oh no,
since,
I understand that, but sometimes you talk, I'm just wondering if you've talked to anybody that's worked there or still works there, because I don't.
yeah, well, I don't, I do know a few people, but I don't talk about, what goes on over there because I just don't want. And every time I do watch, every once in a while, I'll flick the channel, and I know that Tom Contino always watches. But I mean, I sometimes I'll see somebody doing the weather on News 12, and it looks like a kid who has just graduated from junior high school. I mean, my God,
Well, what is minimum wage in New York is what, $15 an hour?
something like that.
That's what that.
Tom Contino, didn't Doug Geed work there for 25 years? Doug Geed was there when you were there, Joe. That was what, over
Yeah, he
30
bought
years ago?
35 years.
Yeah. And did
And he
great.
was there before News 12 started, so it was probably more like 36 or 7
Right.
that he worked there.
I mean, there was no more classier and better reporter or anchor than Doug Geed. And the guys who owns the News 12 now, they called him up and said, "You've been here a little too long, Doug. Take your leave. Get out of there." So,
Well, they also told that to people that weren't exactly there for too long.
yes, exactly.
They did it. They did it to a lot of people. So it's.
The best thing I ever did, because they offered me to stick with the company. And they even said, we'll pay you your moving costs or whatever, but you got to move back to Long Island. And, thank God I didn't make that choice, because I can assure you, if I made that choice, I'd be sitting on the island of Long right now, paying a mortgage, probably. And I would probably be out of a job because they got rid of everybody.
And
You
then
know,
you and I wouldn't have been for all the years that
we
we
wouldn't be
knew each
doing
other,
this.
we wouldn't
We
be
wouldn't be
doing
doing this.
this, and we wouldn't have worked together at FiOS for the couple of years that we did.
Yeah.
That was a
But
good
you were
that
right.
was that was a good finish for
You were right.
that.
You were right. When
What
they
was
came to
what was I
us,
right about?
you said we're going to have a blast. And for the 2 years or so that we were together, we did have a
We
blast.
did. We had a lot of fun. We had a
It,
lot of fun. I will take at least some credit for making it fun.
yes. Oh, yeah.
I made it interesting. If you talk to anybody that that's worked with me, Joe will back me up on this. Um, I made I went out of my way to make the workplace fun, probably pissing off all the management. Right? Am I right?
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly. Well, because when you've been in the business for a long, long, long time, it's not like you're bulletproof, but you've seen it all. And you can tell with our last news director, we had to go in. This is true story. Every day at 3 o'clock there was a quote editorial meeting, and we would go in there and we would do the weather. We would tell what we had expected, and the news
and they
director
wouldn't
there
listen to a word of it.
didn't do a word. And there was that one time. Remember, I said there's a strong probability of severe weather in the next hour or two, and it's going to be sheer mayhem and everything else. And like when I finished my little dissertation, the news director said, "Thank you very much, Joe. Now, what do we have on the crime scene or whatever?"
Right.
An hour and a half later, it was like the sky was falling.
Right. Well, we had lightning bolts hitting the ground near us.
And
We're all outside watching it, like, oh, this is so cool. And
and the,
she comes
and,
out
we,
like a raving maniac.
and to get back inside, and the phone rings. Why didn't anybody tell me about this? And we just
Oh.
shook our it just shook our head. Addison Green was there, and we just looked at Addison, and I just looked at Addison. I said, well, this comes with the territory. I said, you're young. He said, before you're done in this business, you're going to be going through stuff like this many times over, and I think he's already done that. But anyway, anyway, it's 8:45, Joe. I think it's time for us to
We had a good
close.
well, we had a good time.
Well, did we hit 100 yet?
No,
90.
I refuse to end this show now after going at least 15 minutes over what we usually do. And this podcast, by the way, is available worldwide. I mean, people from the tiniest countries are watching us. People from countries with populations less than what our audience size is are watching as we speak.
I
So
mean, do I have to wait until 2 or 3 yellow jackets come roaming
we
into my
just hit 100. I think we begged enough.
hit 100? There we go.
Somebody from Lower Slobovia was the 100th like.
Right. There you go. 102. We're done.
All right. So again, a reminder: tomorrow night we're going to have the great Dave Tolerus on, and he's been on before. The last time he was on, we had a really, honestly, I kid around with him, but we had a very enjoying show. I mean, it was fun. We had a lot of fun doing it, and We'll have fun again tomorrow night. I know he rubs some people the wrong way, but I said last night, Joe, and I'm at the same point. I kind of understand why he goes off the deep end. Now he might have a low threshold of he might have a low threshold as far as when he goes off the deep end, and I know mine is far higher, but I get it. Especially over the last couple of weeks with a few things that I've had to deal with uh, with um, with folks that just do nasty crap and they have shallow, unhappy lives. So the only thing they that makes them happy is to express their anger to people they don't know. Um, but I kind of get it. I don't. I don't blame him for doing it because he gets a lot of people that say stuff. It's like, how do you take that crap? And he doesn't take it. So I give him credit for that.
Right.
I just hope the Phillies win because I know he's a big Philly fan and a Philadelphia Phillies fan. I don't want him to be sad tomorrow.
Now, for everybody on the chat board who's not most, but part of the time tonight, more people have been talking about baseball than weather or whatever. Let me just say this, because people are complaining about the fact that the teams that just barely made it into the postseason are the teams that, for all intents and purposes, now are challenging to get into the World Series or are in the World Series. And why is that? That the top teams got eliminated in the first round or whatever. Look, if you get in to the postseason, whether you're a top team or a bottom dweller or whatever, if you're going to eventually climb to become the world champion of baseball, you take on all comers.
Right.
You take on the bad teams, the whatever. If you're going to be the champion, you win over everybody. So the fact that the top teams, the 5 or 6 top teams, got eliminated in the first round, and now people are saying, "Well, I don't like that because I."
I have not paid 1 ounce of attention to any of this. So Atlanta was eliminated?
Yes, Atlanta was eliminated like in the first.
Wow. I know they had a great season.
Yeah, they all had it. The teams that won like 100 games or whatever, they got wiped out in like the wild card round or whatever. It's crazy.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's like happened with the Mets last year. The Mets won 101 games. They didn't get past the San Diego Padres. That was it. It was all over. All the great teams, I don't know, maybe they just think like, oh, we had a great season. Now we can relax for a while until we make it into the World Series. No, that doesn't work that way.
No.
Not anymore.
Well, you and I go back to the day where they didn't have playoffs.
Well, we go back to the days when there were 10 teams in the American and 10 teams in the National. The team on top in both leagues would play for the World Series. That was it.
And that was that. And it was done by the middle of October.
And the All-Star game was a big thing because American League players played National League players in the All-Star game. They didn't see each other during the season. Now they do. Because of interleague play, all the teams play each other at least once during the season. Well, what the heck is that? Then that makes the All-Star game like superfluous. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Well.
I actually when I used to pay attention to baseball, I kind of liked the idea of interleague play, but that's me. Anyway.
Somebody wanted to answer one question. If tonight's game, it's tied 1-1 right now. If it goes to extra innings, do they still have that lousy ghost runner in extra innings? They put a guy on second base to start the inning off. Do they do that, or do they say, wait a minute? It's kind of like the shootout in hockey. You don't have a shootout during the playoffs.
Right.
Stanley Cup play until, they just keep playing. I hope that if this game goes into extra innings, they don't have that ghost runner at second base.
Well, do they have that rule in the playoffs?
I don't know. I don't know if the rule stands during the playoffs. I hope it doesn't, but we'll see. If it goes extra innings, we'll know.
Rich Rothmansky says no. I don't know if he's saying no to you on that question. No dopey ghost runner, he says.
That's good.
Okay.
If you're going to go in extra innings, play extra innings. Don't put the ghost on second base because that's
then it becomes more of luck.
Yeah.
That rather than fighting it out to the end. I agree with you on that. Okay,
all right.
Gotta go.
Good night.
7:35 tomorrow night, folks. Have a great night.